Hey everyone. Today we're going to take a deeper look into the double homicide of Kylen and Crystal. I have learned that there are a few things left at the crime scene that they found and are currently working on to find any little bit of DNA that they can. Some shell casings have been found at the scene by authorities, and after the scene was opened back up to the public, someone had actually found another shell casing to a 9mm, and it was left at the clue box of Kylen's dad's clue booth. It has not been confirmed that the weapon used was a 9mm, but if it was, then this could be a vital clue. Now, the Shulte family has hired a Utah-based private investigator, and he is actually doing it pro bono to help solve this mystery. So far, everything I've seen from him has just been amazing. He's on it. He's been interviewed on a few shows, and he has revealed a few things, but nothing that would compromise the case. His name is Jenson, and he says that he thinks that solving this crime rests solely on finding this, quote, creepy guy that the girls spoke of at Woody's Tavern that night. If you don't know that story, I did make a video earlier that's more in depth about who the girls are and what we do know happened in Moab. But Jenson did want to clarify a few things. The girls did indeed go to Woody's Tavern the night of August 13th. They joined two friends. They had a quiet, fun night, and they left around 9 p.m. After this, they actually went to visit some friends for a couple of hours. It's a married couple with children. They just sat around talking, nothing out of the ordinary, and they left around 11-ish that night, going back up to the LaSalle Mountains and their campsite. And that's where earlier in the day they did inform friends of a creepy man that had been bothering them, spying on them, and he had even come back with more supplies, as if he had intended on staying longer. So they had decided they would have to move their campsite. I just wish they had just moved it earlier in the day when the sun was up, had some friends come help, but they didn't. After leaving their friend's house, that would have put them at the campsite around midnight, and that's just a guess. I've heard some conflicting times on when they left the friend's house. Some say 11, others say 12. I'm just going to go with the earlier time and say 12. Now, Jenson, along with some authorities, believe the girls were actually ambushed when they returned to the campsite. But the window of when they think that they were murdered is anywhere from midnight of that Friday, which would be actually Saturday morning, the 14th, to 5:30 a.m. that Sunday morning, which is when one of them was to report to work, but they never showed. So that's not a very large window to work with, but that's a good thing. We only have that day, Saturday mostly, to try to figure out who was in the vicinity of their campsite. Now, we've got to find out if there were any vehicles spotted in the area during that time. There was a large wedding party just about a half a mile away, yet allegedly nobody saw or heard anything. So Jenson is looking towards technology for this part. He's looking for satellite images of that exact area on those exact dates and times to see any vehicle. It would be an aerial view, but it could help. If there was a vehicle there, it could help with the color, maybe even the make and model. It's very unlikely to get a license plate because it's from this guy, but that's pretty amazing that they can go back and do that. And it should be noted that Cindy Sue said when she was sitting there waiting for the police to arrive after she found Kylen, that she had seen a blue vehicle pull up to that area. She didn't recognize the person, and it may have been nothing, but she did note a blue vehicle. Okay, so the question is, was it a crime of opportunity, or was it planned out? Was it quick? Was it messy? They were shot multiple times. Kylen was closer to camp, and Crystal was further down, but both were in that tiny little creek. And Jenson assumes that Kylen was shot first because she was the closest to camp. Then Crystal ran and was chased down, which is horrifying. They were left partially nude, and Cindy Sue noted that Kylen's arms were actually at odd angles, like in an unnatural position. The person that did this could be anyone. And for law enforcement to tell the community that they have nothing to worry about is either foolish or they have an idea of who it is. And if you watch my other video, I'm leaning towards the whole Brian Laundrie conspiracy thing. Just because he's the one man that seems to keep popping up wherever the girls were. But there's also the insane man that escaped a mental institution after swearing to go on a R spree. Or the man that was arrested a few times months ago and had a tent filled with weapons on an illegal camping spot. So it could be someone that we never even thought of, a quiet person keeping to themselves, but someone has to know something. Someone has seen something or has an idea, and maybe they don't think it means anything, but God, it could help solve this case. They just may not know what they know yet, So if you or someone was traveling in or near the Moab, Utah area, LaSalle Mountains, Bear Creek areas, anywhere from August 11th through the 17th, and if you have a dash cam, GoPro, pictures, any kind of footage, or just being there, please contact. You can contact your local authorities. The private investigator, Jason K. Jenson, he has a website and a Facebook page. I will link those below. You can put any tips into him, and he will relay it to the proper authorities. This could be anybody, and the scary thing is we don't know, and he could be anywhere. Like John Freeman Colt is at the top of my list. He apparently has an alibi, but seeing as he convinced 3 women to help break him out, and he had someone go camping with him, he seems to be pretty good at being sneaky and conniving. The nurses warned that he was getting more hostile towards women and had threatened to go on an R spree during the time that he was planning this grand escape. They made him an ID card, snuck in him some regular clothes, and out he walked through 5 secured doors and the outside fence. He even had a motorcycle bought for him so that he had a way to travel once he got out. And so far, 3 women have been arrested for helping. And I'm actually posting their pictures because any woman that would help a convicted or I don't know how to put it, escape after threatening to hurt even more women should just not be trusted, in my opinion. Then there's the man with the tent filled with over 3 dozen weapons. He had swords, crossbows, and axe. Personally, I don't feel like he did this. His tent was found around 2 hours away, but it is possible. He still needs to be watched because there's no reason for any man to be camping with that many weapons. That's scary in itself. And they didn't know his whereabouts at the time of the attack on Kylen and Crystal, so I haven't heard anything else about that. Or is it Brian Laundrie? It is said that they found bones near a bag of Brian's items found by his parents shortly after arriving at the reserve, which I find very convenient. Even a 20-year employee of the reserve stated that he does not believe that those are Brian's bones, but that it's another ruse to throw us off track or distract law enforcement. He feels there's no way they could have missed all of that, where it was located, whether there was water there or not, so he does not believe it. But we'll see. I truly hope he's not dead. He may be the only one with any answers. And if he did hurt anyone, Gabby, Kylen, Crystal, he should not get off that easily. Death is too kind for him. And I'm actually making another video just about that issue with Brian and the bones, so I'm not going to go into that right now. Jenson believes that until it can be confirmed where Brian Laundrie was during the murders of Kylen and Crystal, that he cannot be ruled out. Nobody seems to know where Brian was from August 13th, which is the last day the girls were seen, until August 17th, which is the day he flew home to Florida. And coincidentally was the day the girls were officially reported missing. So where was he? Could he have been this creepy guy on the night of the 12th? The night he was separated from Gabby? Could he have come back the next day once they were reunited, bringing more supplies? He could have. And he could have made Gabby stay in the van. If he was this controlling over her, who knows what all he could make her do. Make her sit in the van so nobody would see her. And I even feel like on the 12th that they didn't stay separated, because personally, I don't see him letting her be out running around with a vehicle while he's stuck in that crappy little motel. I don't see it. He seems to be too controlling. Just like when he went home on the 17th, where did Gabby stay? She stayed in that hotel the entire time, and even had her daddy send her food to her room. Why couldn't she go out and get her own food? Tells me that maybe he didn't want her to have the vehicle without him there to watch her. So really, I think they were probably together on the 12th. That's not been confirmed. We have no idea where Gabby was on the 12th. Just a personal feeling from personal experiences. But maybe it happened this way, or maybe he slipped away from her that Friday to carry out one of his sick fantasies that he so often reads about and draws about and posts about on Pinterest. And while he was in Florida, she came to her senses and realized what he had done. Once he was away from her for several days and could not control her and what she sees and hears, I think that's a high possibility and should not be ruled out until we know where he was. I'm sure there are plenty of other suspects or persons of interest. These are only 3 that I have found in the news lately. And if I find any more or hear anything else, I will do my best to update on here. Now, to the shell casings that were found, what they can do with that, they could get fingerprints off, they could get DNA, and I actually have learned a lot about touch DNA, which is just anything someone touches, like clothes, rocks, a weapon, a stick. They can get it from any porous object, It's a tiny hose that shoots out a sterile liquid onto the surface. And the liquid seeps into the pores and crevices, and then the hose sucks up the liquid along with any skin cells it picked up. And then they let it dry, and they send in to the lab. They actually have a software program that can separate the male DNA from female if it's a female victim. And it is called the MVAT system. And I watched a woman named Francine Bardoli. She goes into better detail. It's on another creator's channel. I'm not going to name this person because he tends to strike people just for saying his name. But if you search her name on here, you'll find it. She invented another way to remove touch DNA called the Bardoli method. I just think all of that is just fascinating. So if they do find any fingerprints, they'll put those into the database. And there's also a database for DNA called CODIS, and then a separate database for shell casings, which I had no idea about that one. And it details how the firing pin hits the casing, any markings left on the casing, and then it can identify any crimes committed in other areas used with that same weapon. Then they'll also look under fingernails, on clothing, the pile of plastic bottles that were found next to Kylen's body. Cindy Sue could only identify them as empty clear bottles. There was no labels on them. And maybe a small amount of pink liquid inside, like maybe Gatorade. And what makes me wonder is, why were the labels all taken off? You take off the labels to recycle them. So that brings me back to the Brian theory. The PI says he doesn't really see any sign as of right now of it being a hate crime. Only because, everyone in Moab just loved these girls. And an outsider is less likely to know that they were even a couple. But, maybe if they saw them at the tavern that night and they were being lovey, we don't know. So we'll see how that all plays out. And depending on who they suspect the killer is will tell me a lot if it's a hate crime or a crime of opportunity. I'm still teetering between Brian and Colt. Colt does have the mind of a psychotic killer. But from Brian's posts and drawings that he does, he kind of reminds me of one too, but one with a friendlier face, And actually, someone out there has actually connected several of Brian's trips to other missing cases where the women were eventually found murdered. And the day that they think that they were murdered coincides with some odd posts he would put on Instagram, usually about death or burying bodies. Just another one of those weird, random coincidences that makes you wonder. Almost like he's bragging, like it's his version of a trophy. It's his social media trophy to memorialize the day. So just another thing to think about. I'm not saying it's true. And I'll link his info below as well, because it's very interesting. And I think y'all would like reading into that. I think that's about all I can think of right now. I just want to thank y'all so much for the love and support. I'm still trying to do this the right way, or my version of the right way. So it's going to take me longer to grow my channel. But, I refuse to make my true crime channel about drama or drag someone else's name in the dirt. I cannot do that. I'd rather have a smaller audience of caring people like y'all than a large one filled with hate in their hearts and anger in their words. Nothing gets accomplished that way. Absolutely nothing. So if you like my video, please hit that thumbs up button. If you dislike it, hit the thumbs down. That alone helps me so much. And I appreciate all the comments and your tips and ideas. It really encourages me to do more and do better. I just appreciate you all so much. So, until next time, bye.